right, fellas, we're reunited. There's only three of us here today, and it feels like it's been a while. Has it been a while?
It's been a long time.
Yeah, I was telling Craig, I was like, our podcast maybe should be published a little bit more timely because I remember hearing a podcast in January. It was like, it's December 5th today. And he's like, don't say the dates anymore. I'm like, yeah, it's probably a good idea.
Generic, go generic.
Just go generic. Say, here it is, the first of the year. Anyway, so today I'm excited, bud, because we've actually been curating some content amongst the three of us in the past 15 minutes. It's been good. Tonight we're going to talk about dentist salaries. We're going to talk about bonus depreciation, and we're going to talk about something that I saw interesting on Twitter about the trend towards startups. And so, and then we'll obviously ad lib some things in there, but stay tuned. This is going to be a good one. It's going to be a good one. Craig, we have a text thread, and amongst the four of us, and you were sharing some data that I thought would be a great way to start off the pod. In terms of just, and we'll have a conversation, right? Pent-up demand, where dentist salaries are trending, fees.
Yeah, I got it actually from Dental Nachos. I was on Facebook for, one of the 74 hours a week that I'm on social media, and I saw this graph, and it was like a, hockey stick pointing downward of like dentist salaries falling off a cliff, and then it was also referenced
Share
to
the screen. Share your screen so we can see what, because I am a graphic.
Well, I don't have that. I have the data on the dental expenditures, Peter.
Oh, well, I saw you shared with some kind of graph about where it did because you saw.
Yeah, I put that in our text chat. It was on U.S. News and World Report, but it shows like this prognostication of our salary, and it shows it dropping significantly. And we also lost rank. I don't know if this really matters, but we're falling in our overall rank of best jobs. And our outlook out of 10 is now at 2.1 for the future outlook. Interestingly, is the hygiene wage gap. The hygiene to dentist wage gap is narrowing. So hygienists are getting more money and dentists are getting less. And I don't know what hygiene school costs, but I guarantee you it's a fraction of what dental school costs. I know that much. So it's an interesting set of circumstances that might be.
What does hygiene school cost?
That's a good question.
No, I have no idea, honestly.
Well, I can tell you that I know dentists that are $500,000 in the hole, and I guarantee you that there's. I mean, hygiene education is a fraction of that, for sure. A fraction of that.
$500,000 in the hole hygienist yet?
No, I have not met that person yet. But I mean,
outside of Vegas.
Exactly. Yeah. But no,
that's interesting though. But how much, and just for the sake of conjecture here, the dropping dentist salary is one thing. The hygiene salary moving up seems to still be supply and demand as a hangover from COVID, but that can't last forever.
I don't know about that. I think there's less hygienists entering the market. I think that's what's happening.
And I wouldn't know that number, but it seems like that can't be sustainable long term. As hygiene, as people's short-term memory kicks in, COVID becomes a thing of the past and they forget. And then you do have more hygienists entering the market. And then it becomes a more, we'll call it standard salary compared to what we had pre-COVID.
Yeah, I think speaking to the pent-up demand, I can show that. If you don't mind, Peter, I will share.
Go ahead.
That one thing that was from the ADA here. And you can see that in consistent dollars. Is that zoomed in enough for y'all?
Yeah, that's good. Mm-hmm.
So you can see in 2020, obviously the big dip from COVID, $156 billion.
So what we're looking at right now is the national dental expenditures and how they decreased by 6.3% from
in 2021
to 2022.
Right. So here we are. Let's just, for those that are not watching, we'll go back to 2018. We're at 158 billion. Then 2019, 163 billion. So a big increase there. By the way, these dental expenditures follow typically the S&P. So rising market, and kind of points to a rising spend from the consumers in dentistry. And we, if you're not looking at the screen, we have a steady and consistent up and to the right from 2000 all the way through 2019. So we're consistently moving north every year, going from a low of 101 billion in 2000 to 163 in 2019. As you would expect, 2020, COVID, we went down from 163 to 156. But then 2021, we jumped up big time, which I think speaks to your pent-up demand conversation of 176. And then we dropped 6.3% to 165. So overall, the trend looks good, but obviously U.S. News and World Report says the future for dentists in general is less attractive, and our median salary is now $155K. So like I always say, and we've gone through this before in this podcast, at $155K, because you have to assume you're going to be median or average, is it worth it to take out $400 or $500 in debt? And this is exactly the conversation I had with the ADA president last podcast. You know, it
was scintillating, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Yes. I wanted to ask even harder questions, but I felt like I was just like beating this person up. You know, Dr. Edgar, she's a nice woman, and it's hard she's like a nice older lady, and I just don't want to be like so super rude, but like I go on the ADA website.
Grandma. Don't want to beat her up.
Yeah, I don't want to beat up the grandma, but it's like I'm go on the website. It's like, how do we save 15% on our car insurance? How do you do all this crap? It is so offensive that the ADA does not have a position to, you know, that's overt and well described so that people like me can understand it. And then I even went on to rejoin the ADA, and I couldn't even rejoin. The link was all broken. I did something wrong, and then I emailed. No one responded back to me. I think it was a
valiant effort. I was kind of like...
On whose part? A valiant effort on whose part?
Like Craig's. I think it was...
Craig's, okay.
I think it was good that he wanted to at least have dialogue, because they had been kind of reaching out, especially because you did some podcast thing, and Craig, and they were like, hey, let's put you on the pod. And I was like, I'm out on this one. Right? Isn't that how that whole setup happened?
Yeah. I said I wanna interview someone from the ADA. I had no idea at the time I was gonna actually be interviewing the president. And I see this, lady, and I'm like, so what's your position with the ADA? She's like, I'm the president. I'm like, oh shit, I had no idea. So I was,
should have prepared.
Yeah, I should. Well, no, I didn't. I didn't know. I mean, what are
you talking about? He doesn't prepare for podcasts.
That's a good point.
Well, by the way, speaking of preparing for podcasts, and let's get back to this. So 6.3% decrease in national spending, but at the same time, the share of dental spending from government programs from 2019 to 2022 increased from 13 to 17.
It's because of Medicare. That's because of Medicare.
Right, but that actually added some, tailwinds to this.
I see the spend. Yeah. But look, as you overlaid, and I know you can't show that graph of what dental salaries was going, it's the same it's parabola, essentially, right? As expenditures has gone down, then the median income has gone down. And so it's tracking the pent-up demand, and everyone was fighting for dental, let's just say dental laborers. We're all dental laborers. So everyone during COVID and post-COVID was fighting for dental laborers, whether that was hygienists, assistants, dentists. And so, right, supply and demand, we all learned that in our 101 econ class in college. We know what happens when that. And so now the tides are shifting, right? And unfortunately, there is a lag effect of this, right? Meaning you see the data, but I don't know, Trey, for example, you're hiring a new associate or interviewing associates constantly. Are they still stuck in COVID era compensation?
Well, were dentists ever stuck in COVID era compensation?
Yeah, well, look, hygienists.
Because I know hygienists were.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. I didn't see any change in dentist compensation in COVID area. COVID did not change the dentist compensation from what I saw. However, it dramatically changed hygiene compensation.
Oh, for sure. And assistant compensation.
Yeah, it did. Although not as dramatic as hygiene from what I saw. But now we're starting to see the hiring pool open up dramatically from the standpoint of I don't feel crunched in any way at this point in time.
Do you feel crunched,
like
Peter?
You did in COVID?
For hygiene?
Post-COVID.
Yeah, for hygiene or for assistance? No. Okay, got it.
None. All right, so let's talk about then. Like, data is fun, but like, what does this mean for our unique businesses? And I think that's where we need to look at it. So how will this change? Will this data? How will this impact the way that you run your operations, Craig?
Specifically, what?
Expenditure spend, right? The stuff you just gave us. If I say, Craig, dental expenditures are trending down. Any change in your practice? Yes or no?
Yeah, I would. Yes, there would be. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So
What
I
would that
think
be?
that, well, I look at, I've been in dentistry a really long time, and
We know.
I saw the referral network breakdown. I saw the referral to specialty. I saw the traditional narrow focus GP model breakdown. What started happening is when dentists became advertisers and tried to attract their own patients, the patient became a more precious commodity. And they were very careful about how to refer out this precious commodity. So they started offering more services under one roof and increasing their scope and aligning with specialty and multi doctor practices. I see the same thing. So as dental expenditures go down, you can't afford to be picky about doing the 6 out of 10 procedures that a patient needs. So if you are a doctor that prides themselves on a narrow focus, as dental expenditures go down, you're going to need to be able to do as much as possible. Your shelves need to be stocked with the top 10 things that every patient needs, and you won't be able to be a specialty shop. Look at Toys R Us. Toys R Us was the toy store, and now it's Amazon. So Amazon, you can buy milk, and you can buy ball bearings and gas, water pump. So I think that the days of being narrowly focused and niched are going to be very difficult. And I think dental practices need to listen to that.
Mainly because, Craig, it's not because of niching, it's because of convenience.
Right.
So Amazon wins because it's more convenient than driving to Toys R Us, parking your car, blah, blah, blah. Right? It wins because you can hit a button. And as we know, hitting your thumb always wins. When you're typing someone or texting someone or hitting a button or checking out, your thumb wins.
So then if you're saying that, it's the broader conversation of all the convenience. So those that can do online scheduling, online conversations,
100%.
online payments, less friction.
The line I always say, which is what? Reduce the friction.
Right.
And
so
if you get
those that can
obsessed
do
with
that,
reducing the friction for the patient to say yes, you start winning more as much as you can. And,
yeah, and using AI for that too. Professor Galloway mentioned, I don't know, you guys ghosted me on that because you didn't want to give me any props, but Professor Galloway mentioned that he's coming to Florida and that he should have an AI bot that should allow Spodak Dental Group to contact him knowing that he's coming to Florida. Like you booked a ticket, you usually get your teeth cleaned, you should have, Spodak should be contacting him. And when that technology is actionable, that's going to be a big differentiator because it's frictionless. You book your flight to come to Florida, you usually go to such and such a restaurant or such and such a dental practice, and it puts that together and says, do you want us to do that? Imagine that.
I want to have a dental conference in tech only, in tech and AI, where you can get exposed to all these ideas and think tanks, because like your point about that's just programmatically data, right? I think there could be opportunity. I mean, there's so many opportunities in that. The diagnostics, as we've been exposed to Pearl in our own practices, diagnostics have gone way better. So for dentists to get exposure to streamlining things in their practice, right? Even the exposure of the patient management, even to switching to CareStack, there's been so many advancements in the methodology of the way we do things, and it's saved hundreds and hundreds of hours of people's time, right? We have a thing, our thing, and I won't go off on a tangent, but imagine this for a second. All of our calls are listened to, summarized, transcribed, and put into the patient chart automatically. We used to have to rely on people to remember to summarize things and put them in the chart. Right?
Is that
a
function of CareStack in and of itself, or is it an add-on through a third party?
No, it's integrated.
That's super cool.
So you talk about saving thousands of hours a year for a practice my size. Oh, and not only that, but not forgetting stuff. Oh yeah, I need to go back at the end of the day and document that conversation I had with Miss Jones at 9 a.m. What? All right, I don't want to get stuck on that, but I think Bulletproof should have a second conference called dental tech and AI, and just
Well, I'm
invite.
going to volunteer you for our upcoming conference on June 14th and 15th in Scottsdale. You're going to have a summit breakout. If that's intriguing to anybody,
I would love
comment
to.
below. If we get at least 15 people saying yes, then
Yeah, right.
then
If we
you're
get
doing one.
all 7 of you to say yes.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, listen, the summit will sell out. Don't we had the,
Probably
the
two of
win
us
had
on this call.
500.
As a matter of fact, Craig, I think this summit, you should just stay up there, because all I do is look at you and you talk about vision and kumbaya and I can't do it. And so maybe we just high five and reconnect and disconnect.
Okay.
I'm
We'll
kidding,
agree,
but
we'll agree to disagree.
So basically what you're saying is main stage and side stage.
side. Yeah. Craig, how do you feel about the side stage?
I don't care.
Okay. All right.
Fine with me.
So guys, the next topic I want to talk about, which is very, very big in my opinion, very, very bullish for economic spend. We just talked about expenditures, Craig, but this next thing I'm about to show you could rocket the expenditures back up in dentistry. All right. And it is this. So there is a bill on the House, as you know, or hope you know, that there's something called bonus depreciation in the land of real estate and 179s and all these things, right? Depreciation is how we think about buying something and then depreciating it year one. These were set in, these
4
were
days
Trump
ago.
tax discounts that were set in place, and they were scheduled to slowly start going back to zero, right? So in 2020, I think it was the last year of 2021 was the last year of 100%. And then 2022, it's 80%. And then 60%. I think I'm off by a year on that. But so last year was 60%. Then this year it's going down and down, right? I'm off on my data because I was trying to do that in my head. Actually, I think 2024 is 60%.
Yes.
So there's a bill.
It's 60% this year.
Correct. So last year was 80%.
2025. Yes.
2021 was the last year.
Whatever. You can do the
bonus
math.
depreciation.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? That means, people buy less airplanes because people depreciate airplanes. They buy less equipment. They buy less things. Real estate isn't as accelerated, and real estate is a big driver of our economy, as we know. Real estate because they can't accelerate the depreciation of said asset. And so this bill is in the House right now. It actually is out of the House. It passed the House 40-3 in a vote, which then I was asking you guys, does it then go to the Senate? Actually, I'm looking at here. So more than likely this will pass. And if it does pass, what this means is also that it's going to go back to 2023, which had 80%. And it's going to retroactively activate that for 100%. Okay. So you would have a kid.
Yeah, but it still has yet to be
It
passed.
has yet to be
because,
passed. All the people I've spoken to agree.
all the senators.
Well, okay, fair enough. All the people who are in the business of tax filings and people who are in the know feel that this is probably going to happen, especially because we are in an election year, right? Where the current administration wants to get credit for this stimulus.
Right.
And this is a stimulus for make no bones about it, right? When you have a stock market.
Yeah, but look at all the spend we have.
Right. But look, stock market is an all-time high. And then you're going to throw in a stimulus, right? And so a stimulus of depreciation. So anyway, just interesting. We were even talking about this, Craig, last night on our deal where we are involving a real estate deal where we are involving masterminders and stuff. You and I are, involved in a real estate investment, which we were sharing with other masterminders. And the depreciation plays a big role in how much your yield is for your investment, right? Your cash on cash returns, or, because you get to write off more in the year, and therefore your cash has more applicability towards your deduction on your first year tax return. So this is a big deal. And so one of my predictions would be that if this passes, we will see that tick of that graph you just showed us. It will go back up into prosperity.
Well, I hope so.
I
know the S&P
specifically.
Yeah, because Trey, what I'm saying is that there's a trickle down effect in the economy. You can't just say, dentistry is good right now and medicine's not, and real estate's good and cars are not, right? It's like when things are good, Disney World's busy, dentists were busy, right? I'm just saying that people feel emotionally rich.
Correct. Discretionary spending is going up.
By the way, I saw this weekend at that investor conference I went to in Houston, I saw that the S&P without the Magnificent Seven, I guess it's like Facebook, Google, Apple, I don't even know what they are, but like the Magnificent Seven accounted for like 23% of the total S&P 500. So that means it's like an S&P
Without those seven, it
seven.
would be flat.
Yeah, so like what is that? I don't do math quick. I'm embarrassed the shit out of myself, but 78% of the S&P was made up of 493 stocks. The other 78% is 493. So it's like we have a very weighted preference towards that Magnificent Seven. It's also like it's really like a Magnificent Four, because I think there's 4 stocks that actually make the biggest gains there.
That's not. I mean, look, you hear the acronym FANG stocks, like FAANG. You know, like that's been around for a long time. I mean, it's this monopoly or duopoly, or what's the word for septopoly?
Yeah, it's a septopoly, correct?
Yeah.
I like octopoly.
Octopoly.
It's like
that sounds good.
monopoly
Yeah,
of
that sounds good
octopuses, octopi. So yeah, So it's basically many of the stocks in the S&P are actually average, but it's interesting to look at.
All right, next topic, and this will kind of roll in, and then Trey, I want to ask you some things about kind of your expansion and associates and what you're needing right now, but I want to go over one more thing, because I thought whenever I see something interesting, especially on Twitter or Facebook, I ping things to a board I have that's like, ooh, our podcast needs to talk about this. I think it's interesting. And let me share the screen. It is, there's this guy that I follow. I think his handle's funny. Look at his handle, the @dental RE guy. So he's saying basically, I'm the real estate dental guy. I think he's new to the scene. Have you guys noticed that? Like, he was quote unquote the I'm the DSO guy.
Yeah, the AC repair guy, the strip mall guy
is funny. That was like the trend for a while. But anyway,
yeah. Are you the guy for anything? By the way,
no. I'm just
okay. You could be the weed wall guy.
Yeah, I'm not the guy.
You have, for those that are watching, he has a wall of weeds.
Oh, the wall. These are not weeds. What are you talking about?
What are they?
This is my marijuana wall.
Yeah, weed.
Not
plural.
Not weeds.
Plural. It's a weed wall, not a weeds wall.
I said weed wall. Okay, keep going. But you're not the guy account. I figured you would have a guy account.
No, but now you're giving me a little bit of FOMO that I may have missed out on an opportunity. And so, what kind of guy would I have been?
There'll be something new.
Yeah,
I don't know.
You got to choose one. You're running out of options, man.
The legend in his own mind guy.
That's a good one.
The nucleus of everything
guy. All right. So anyway,
all right, go back
here.
This guy, his name's Seamus. And so basically, obviously, he's studying real estate, but he's basically saying this trend with the large DSOs is that, I'll just read it for those people who are driving or listening as they're exercising. The de novo model continues to gain momentum among DSOs, with Heartland leading the charge. Heartland Dental announced they plan to relocate and build nearly 100 ground-up practices in 2024. I can imagine the numerous smaller DSOs embracing this strategic approach. Are they embracing it, or are they doing it because now they have to? So I want to hear what you guys have to say, but for someone who is an active investor in all things dentistry and real estate, I constantly am on Crexy and LoopNet. Okay. Craig, you and I have gone through this exercise. We've looked at buying even some Aspens or Heartlands. What are the most valuable ones? The ones that are built ground up, standalone, sitting there at a corner, right? The
Aspens. Those Aspens are usually.
And so, I don't know. I'm gonna let y'all talk.
And who can afford
that.
those?
I'm just saying, like, go ahead, Trey.
I was going to say, I heard this same thing not too long ago, and it's funny because it's been the topic of our leadership meetings quite a bit, because I am that smaller DSO that is now starting to embrace this whole thought process for the same reason that when you dig deeper into that, what's happening is if you buy a practice and then go and deploy your model, it is not as fast as you want it to be if you want to keep the people happy and keep existing staff to stay.
So when you do an acquisition,
so to truly move quickly,
what you're saying.
when you do an acquisition, So we all have a model. Heartland has a model. And when an acquisition, when you buy when you buy a practice, when you have an acquisition of an existing practice that has cash flow, which is the idea, it has a patient base, but it's operating on a different model. Coming in and overlaying your model onto theirs does not go over well with a lot of the team and the doc that you buy the practice from. So if your goal, which has been the goal for so many years, is to keep that team in place, that becomes harder because you disrupt everything and you discourage people from producing more. And then you tend to have a fall down on the job.
Super challenging from a culture standpoint, from a methodology standpoint, from a clinical standpoint. And to your point, Dre, that the team is an asset that you are actually buying, no different than your patient base. So when there is attrition of your team, in addition to your patient base, right, that is a wild card that sometimes is a risk. And I can tell you, as someone who's done an acquisition that then had all those things happen, I have regret with that acquisition. So the certainty, I always tell people come to me a lot for whatever reason, and they ask me, hey, should I do a startup or acquisition? I'm like, not enough data for that one, but sure, let me go into this. I always contend that if you love your culture, you have a flagship, love what you've created, you feel very strong in your systems and your operations, and you do not need cash flow right out the gate, then do a startup. When I say you do not need cash flow right out the gate, meaning that business one, practice one, or your lifestyle one has enough bandwidth where you can go into the down phase. So an acquisition, you're buying cash flow. That's actually what you're paying for. You're buying a multiple on return, whatever that looks like for you. For some, it's 4, for some, it's 10. And that's the X on EBITDA. Okay. What are you saying, Craig?
No, nothing. I was just cracking my neck.
So
I have a lot to say.
That's the advice I give people when they give me no data, is like, well, I don't know, but like, here's what I do. So my model was predicated on de novos, right? And a couple acquisitions. One acquisition was great. One was, it's all right. In hindsight, if you gave me the opportunity, looking back, would I have done it? I don't think so. But you learn from a lot from that, right? And I'm able to sit here with kind of 2 data points that says, like, I'm not saying never again. I'm just saying, hey, I had to chew some glass on this one, and I won't chew glass again in the same context.
Whatever happened, Peter, with that acquisition you were talking about, that rural acquisition that you took us through the metrics
actually,
of the podcast?
So ironically, like,
is it going, or did it not
it's about to close next week. And so the delay has been on my part because of funding, because I didn't have 2022 taxes yet. It's a whole cluster, right? I've had some tax
but it's going
lately.
forward.
But anyway,
it's more like a sale leaseback, the way I look at that one. Like, you're leaving everything intact.
Right. All I can do is
that's
mess
a different
it up,
type of thing,
right? I mean, I want to go in when the practice doesn't have a website, right? That's a great way of saying, hey, we're going to put in some technology. There's some upside to this, but I do not want to go in and be like, okay, everyone's salaries are changing, your hours are changing. Here's our new fee schedule. Here's the new software. I'm the boss now, right? Like, that's the last thing you want to do. As a matter of fact, I actually talked to, you know him. Why am I drawing a blank on his name? President for MB2.
Oh, not Villanova,
Justin.
the other guy.
Justin, yeah.
Justin.
And he and I had he's an awesome dude, by the way. Had a great conversation. He's like, look, the last thing, I don't know where this conversation stemmed from, but it was basically like, what we do is we do the acquisition and then we don't do anything for like 6 months, right? Because we want everyone to just settle down, right? Because emotions are high, and just settle in. And then we make small little micro changes that will benefit the practice, us, and the patient base, and the employees, right? And so I just thought that was great to kind of titrate into an acquisition. So let's go back to the tweet, and I'll shut up, and I want to hear you guys.
So go back to the tweet just for 1 second, if you don't mind. So like, let's kind of dissect this out from a specific vantage point of Heartland. And I've got nothing bad to say about Heartland, but I just want to point out the obvious. I, as a dentist, like you, the rest of these listeners, I get a mailing once every so often, once a quarter, once every 6 months, whatever it is, where it's that picture. And I don't know if this is still applicable, but I think I can remember getting it in the last 6 months, where it's like a dentist. He looks to be about my age, 55 or so, and half of his body's covered in scrubs and half of him is fishing. And the marketing strategy goes something along the lines of, are you sick and tired of being a dentist? Would you like to spend more time fishing and being on the lake? Well, call us. So your marketing message is, are you checking out?
Okay.
Are you wanting to leave your practice? Well, we want to buy your practice. So it's no wonder when we're now off the era of zero interest rates and you can't just borrow money for less and less. You actually have to focus on
Craig,
same store sales growth.
Just for a sec. Let me stop you. Okay. Just say, have you ever pivoted your business model? Meaning, have you ever been like, this isn't working, let's change something up? Because we see lead indications of what's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I'm pointing to. I'm saying that what they were doing is not working.
Well, it worked.
It works when you can borrow money for
the time period it was in, meaning they had massive aggregation.
Right, but it
correct.
Right.
Well, and then what do you run into? You run into, and let's use Craig's practice as an example. Craig sells his practice to Heartland. Craig's a dentist in there and mega producer. He wants to fish. Craig stays on for 3, 4, 5 years, whatever, and then he's out. Yeah. Who takes Craig's place to run that practice?
The point I was trying to make, when you're borrowing money at zero, it's a solvable equation. When you have an interest rate that comes into play now of 9%, the equation the mathematics no longer work.
I hear you. And
well, whatever I'm saying, I'm just saying that they have to do this. And we always heard from friends that we've worked with, and I think it was Sulman Ahmed, who's, the president of the ADSO, who said to us, and I think I'm giving him credit for this correctly, whoever wins the de novo model wins the DSO game. If you can replicate a good de novo, you win.
It's because they needed to get to critical mass. What's the easiest way to get to critical mass and critical revenue, right? As an aggregate revenue, you buy it. Now you're Megaphone, and now you're the biggest leader in the space. Now you say, we have a lot of inbound people wanting to work for us. We no longer need to do acquisitions. We have plenty of cash flow. We can acquire cheap money. And if you look at how they're making an arbitrage on their real estate, when you go online to the Crexes of the world, they're actually making money on building these standalone de novos, putting in a 20-year lease, and then selling it for probably 2 to 3 times the cost of construction immediately.
Yeah, it makes no sense for them to hold the real estate, by the way. And when you and I originally wanted to do these deals, the cap rates are so suppressed because, having a blue chip like an Aspen or whatever as a secured
low,
tenant,
right?
The cap rates. Yeah.
Meaning
cap rate just means, leases. I'm just breaking it down for everyone, Craig. A cap rate of 5 means that if you were to buy that building for cash, you could expect a 5% return on your money, cash on cash.
Right. And an interest rate of 7 means you're -2 on the investment.
Yes.
As just quick math or basic math. But the point I'm trying to make is that they can sell at a premium, those Aspen dental locations. People are willing to buy them because it's not Peter Boulden's dental practice.
Guaranteed.
It's Aspen's. It's a more secure tenant.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what a great model. What a great model.
So here's a question. So all of those things, what I described, Craig, what you're describing, these are all things that do cause a pivot. However, in this case, and whether this is a pivot or whether this is baked into the overall strategy of how it is, which is kind of how a lot of business goes anyway. What do you think? Do you do it? Pete, are you going back to a a startup?
Ask it
mentality?
Again. I'm sorry. I didn't see the question.
Are you,
He's just asking you point
do you
blank.
agree with this? Are you going to go back
I
to
agree
doing
with
startups?
Their method here?
No. Are you going to do it?
Okay, fair question. No, I'm personally not. I'm not saying I wouldn't, but I feel like I've saturated in my market, right? I've had 5 locations in a metro area. I feel like I've saturated my business model, fee for service, right? So I don't want my partners, and I don't want to expand on that thing. I am doing a ground up though. Actually, we'll say that. I am doing a ground up construction tray, breaking ground here in 30 days. in a rural market. It's an 8,400 square foot building. Half of it will be ortho, half of it is general dentistry. And it is predicated on massive traffic counts, right? Very similar to that of what we're probably talking about when Craig, you were saying Aspen and stuff like that. We've all seen them as we drive by. So, and let me put one more pin in that, Dre. If I were to do an acquisition, which is more than likely, the ones I would do would look very similar to the ones I would build.
Got it.
Exposure wise.
So
I guess
you're going to keep doing a hybrid
this. So
model.
yes, I am doing this, I guess then. You're right. I do agree with it.
You'll still have an acquisition, which funds some of the de novos. The de novos come online down the road because you can survive the down period. But in the end, the one that wins is the startup. Injected culture from the beginning. You have built-in real estate, which now you get all the bennies of that. Culture from day one, designed from day one. You have nothing that you have to hammer a square peg into a round hole. It's a smart move.
I agree.
Really, in the scheme of things.
It's a very dominant move, right? It's you can't hurt us now kind of move.
If I can go anywhere, I'm hard to compete with. That's why Greg, what you alluded to with Solomon saying that whoever wins the startup game
Craig?
wins the whole DSO space.
I believe he did. He said a lot of smart things at the time that we were talking frequently.
Oh, yeah, if you don't remember, make it a Craig Spodak.
I'm sorry.
I heard Craig Spodak one time say that whoever wins the startup game.
You know what, Solomon, I'm taking that away from you. I said that.
Take the credit.
Yeah. I'm the new president of the EDSO with my one location.
So, and I have a couple brands. They're very specific and they're very tied with a very specific feel. They have a niche. I can go into a practice and tell you of my brands, which one that, if it's an acquisition, which one that's going to be. And when you start to, one thing that I've always thought of from the beginning was how do I differentiate myself in line in a strip center, which a lot of people have succeeded in. I have never chosen to do that for other reasons. But if I chose to go down that path and I felt like I had that model, look at Ideal Dental, among many others. Once you can go into any strip center at any given time, those go up everywhere, all over every metropolitan area, every suburban area. They're in rural areas now. You do win the game.
You know what?
You can go anywhere you want.
What's appealing to that, I mean, if that is the model of which you think you can win in, is that your capital improvements they will pay for. Why am I drawing a blank on this? Thank you. The TI that they will give you because you're going to be signing a long-term lease. They're saying, hey, we'll give you whatever you want to build. We'll build it for you, right? Because they know it's very sticky and that once they get a dentist in there, it's holy shit, I can remarket this. Once I get this dentist in here, I can remarket this in the open market and make an arbitrage on my money. So all that Heartland's doing in this scenario is saying, hey, we've got some good data points of saying we can sell these buildings at a 5.3 cap, which from a seller's perspective, you love to hear that. You want to sell it at 5.3, right? The higher the capitalization rate, the better it is for the buyer. So they have a data point that says, hey, we can double the cost of, we buy a building, we can build a building for $1 million. We can sell it for $2 million. Now we just made $1 million we can throw into our capital account to keep expanding. And right, the snowball keeps getting bigger and bigger, right? Their velocity gets bigger and bigger, and they can use real estate as a way to fund because they're in the business of dental operations, not dental real estate. And so all this to say, I think we can learn a lot from, I think you can learn a lot from trends, especially where they have data scientists. I'm sure Heartland has data scientists that say, hey, here's where the market's going. Right. So if you're listening to this and you're in my brain's going all over the place right now for some reason, but I'm thinking about like what happens to the dentist who's tucked away in the high rise with 3 operatories? What happens to the I don't know. I'm just thinking about all these things. So what are you shaking your head for, Craig?
No, I how tough that would be. You know what I mean?
So what's the antidote? Instead of being like, oh, that's tough for them. Like, what would be the antidote for that? A merge, an acquisition, a move?
It's. I just think it's going to really segment out the profession. There's going to be those that are entrepreneurial and those that can expand, and those that'll just do well with the time that they have. And it's very dependent on what you wish to create. The last thing I want to do is ever tell someone they should spend more emotion and more time to pursue more money. It's a balance of what you want to create. But if you are an entrepreneurial person, or you wish to free yourself from the clinical dentistry, and you're in that 3-operatory practice in the high rise, that's going to be very difficult. So what I was doing is, if I want to just rewind a second, I said it's very difficult because for me and what I want to create, I would not want to be in that situation. I pride myself on having a business that can run without me. But it took me a long time to get there. But at 52 years old, if I don't want to show up tomorrow, I don't want to have to show up tomorrow. That's what I wanted. And that may not be right for other people listening to this.
That's a very good point, because I think people get caught up in what everyone else is doing. And dentistry, although you hear all the doom and gloom of we're consolidating and this is what's happening, you've been one step away from never being able to compete for 2 decades. This is still an industry based on relationships. You can still survive. Things may change, but you're not done. And that 3-op practice in the high rise is still going to be there. It may just do a little bit less if you chose to do it. What's important is that you do what you want to do. You pursue what's important for you.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I did a podcast on a dental student podcast recently, and and they were kind of saying, like, here's the sentiment that's coming our way. And it was like the same shit we all heard when we were in dental school. It's like, oh, too bad you guys missed the golden era of dentistry. I'm like, I was like, you guys know they were saying this shit to me when I got out of school. And guess how much golden era there's been, right? Yeah. I was like, so don't listen to these talking heads. I was like, people don't want you to succeed potentially because it could expose them. And I was like, dentistry is going to be golden.
Well, listen, there's some.
Don't panic.
There is some truth, though, Peter. There is some truth. When my father graduated dental school, there was no marketing skill you needed to learn. There was no technology that was disruptive. A dentist was fairly standardized across all experiences.
Totally.
Maybe you liked one better than another.
Advertising was forbidden. I got called up to the board
I know.
because of
it. I know. I was the first guy to have a web. I got a whole bunch of evil looks from a lot of the older guys here in Delray. But what I'm trying to say is that if you, in 1985 or 1990, Dr. Jones and Dr. Smith in the same metro, one didn't have a laser and one didn't have a CEREC or a cone beam. They just had a place to sit and a place to spit. And maybe Becky, the hygienist, was a little nicer, but the ability for a patient to discern the differences between their dentist was really relied upon personality. So for those that say the golden age is gone, in some ways it's a fair thing because all you had to be was nice and good. And now you could be nice and good and still fail, and that sucks. You could be so there's where the DSOs take up the space. You mentioned Ideal Dental. Amazing look and feel. Another credit to Sulman.
Yeah,
We should call this Sulman on this podcast.
Craig giving Sulman all the props.
No, well, listen, give credit where credit's due. Ideal Dental looks good, tech friendly, clean. They may not be clinically better than Dr. Jones, but patients are going to perceive them as a higher value proposition than Dr. Jones because, let's face it, patients can't discern quality. So the inferred references of quality are all hitting for Ideal Dental and not for Dr. Jones. It's just the average dentist down the street that has excellent hands. And like everything else, it is different. And it's good for us because we are entrepreneurs and we are seeing this and pivoting with it. But for those that are just wanted to be a dentist, like the same way Kirby from the Elf show wanted to be a dentist back in the Claymation series in Christmas, you know what I'm talking about? Where Kirby the Elf, Kirby's going to have a hard time right now, just to be the dentist. And, we meet dentists and they're risk averse and they are debt averse and they don't want to put themselves out there. They're sometimes introverts. Those guys and girls are going to have a hard time to the ones that want to jump around on Instagram and do TikToks and promote themselves. That was it. I'm sorry to end on a sobering comment, but
I think it's good. I think this potentially could encourage more open-handed mergers of dentists, right? Or someone who's feeling vulnerable to kind of maybe come together and hold hands. This could also encourage more A players to hitch their wagon to someone like Trey and saying, hey, give me this next building that you want to do. And right. And like from a merit perspective, you will reward me based on how well I can do in said location, right? I think it'll encourage a lot more community at the same time, right?
Trey, are you hiring right now?
Hiring dentists?
I'm hiring right now.
Hiring
I'm hiring
dentists?
2 spots. I'm hiring dentists. I have 2 locations I'm hiring dentists for. One being my Brenham location, which is about an hour west of Houston. So anybody interested, give me a call. The other one's in Livingston, which is an hour north of Houston, which is actually both are phenomenal places to live. Livingston has a beautiful lake up there, but
from the city?
Those are two practices. They are. So awesome opportunity in both cases to live in the burbs and commute to the rural if you don't want to live out there. But even those cities are great to.
I just want to live in the rural these days.
But
yeah,
me too. Oh no,
so
you're
maybe
preaching
Peter
to the choir.
Maybe you have your
Hey, y'all want to jump? I got 2 spots.
That's the problem. So
that's my problem. I pitched her on a few.
That's the reason why I like
some
it.
crumbs her way, saying, "Hey, but if you did this, we
buy a
could
helicopter. We can buy a helicopter.
I thought I had her.
Yeah,
I got shot down quick.
So are they available right now? These opportunities?
I have both available right now. Well, I say one's available in a month. The other's available right now. One is a purchase I just made. Livingston is a purchase I just made. I need someone in there. We have one dentist in there. I'd say 1.5 dentists in there. I need to have somebody come in that wants to take over that practice. And then Brenham is
there an equity opportunity? Is there a future partnership opportunity?
Oh, that's a tough question.
I don't know. Let's say I'm an entrepreneurial dentist, and
the answer is yes.
The answer is always yes.
Cool.
I'm open and amenable to virtually everything.
Sweet. Okay.
The only way
you're flexible. You're
flexible.
You're equity curious.
I'm ruggedly flexible. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm non-binary in partnership models here.
Hey, and by the way, Craig,
appreciate
congratulations. Your first partnership was just consummated.
I know.
Oh, congrats.
Yeah, Dr. Tiffany Dudley. We dated she worked in this practice for 15 years and we moved it to a marriage. And I told my team, don't worry, even though it's a marriage, it's going to be like many marriages in America without any romance, so there's no need to feel uncomfortable about our
It's going to be a sexless marriage, Craig.
Yeah, isn't that like
those are real positive.
I did say that literally to the team. I said, we are bringing our relationship to a marriage, but don't be concerned.
That's fun.
It'd be like most marriages in America.
That's
yes,
funny.
Exactly.
She's
wonderful. And from the day she got here, she's always been acting like an owner. She's a boss, and she compliments, that's that yin and yang. I think a lot of people get tripped up because they want to find someone exactly like them, but the strength comes in finding the opposing strength to your strengths, and she's got them. So
I will say this, when, I don't know, 2 years ago when we really started talking down the path of partnerships together, I was always adamantly opposed to partnerships. And I have multiple now, and I have very much changed my tune on that. It is
me too.
If you choose
100%.
the right partner, it is a very beneficial thing to do. You choose the wrong partner, it's a terrible thing to do because it is in fact the sexless marriage. But that's hard to beat. You can go so much farther.
Well, it's a different. Can I say something on that as being the?
Oh, I knew the humble flex is coming. Introduce the as being
the giant in the room. As the giant in the room with 30
being the one guy
who's done it.
Let me tell you.
And so Trey, I'm farther along in the path because I saw the value of that early on. And I do agree with you. The diligence you have to do in order to vet the partner, and it's not just jump through this clinical hoop and jump through this and this. It's, do I even like you? Do we agree with this? And where I was going with that is that so many people get stuck on the equity thing, Trey. And maybe you're like most dentists, and then they think partnership means 50-50 partner. I don't want that. Like if you just say partnership to the average dentist who's down the street, right? And you say you should get a partner. What do they immediately go? What is our industry immediately?
I don't want to divide up my equity.
50-50.
50-50.
Well, it's not even 50-50 the number. It's why would I want to
Give away.
give away my cupcake? So let's just take the 50-50 out of it. 5, 10, 15, 30, 80%. Why would I want to give away what I work so hard? They don't realize, no, you're actually, the three of us would not want to work as hard as we do if we didn't have an incentivization program for the performance that we bring. Because as an associate, you're paid for the dentistry, but let's face it, a lot of associates that are really great out there are adding organizational value to the practice as well. They're
100%.
marketing for the practice. They're leading the team. So listen, if you just want to drill and get the hell out at 4:59 every day, you're probably not a partner.
You may live in the median
but if you
income
want to do
forever.
those three things,
Right?
right. But if you want to do those three things, be an exceptional dentist, grow the practice beyond your handpiece, and lead the team, you're adding organizational value. You should want a piece of equity.
Average input.
That's
equals
strategic
average
value.
output.
And strategic value is incredibly valuable.
Yeah.
Right.
That's good. Well, that's a great opportunity for those of you who
awesome.
are in earshot of hearing that for Trey. That's a great opportunity. Trey, I would have loved to found you post dental school and hitch my wagon to you for sure.
Yeah, I would have too. I would have. Yeah.
We're doing
I'll still hitch my wagon to you.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I'll drive.
All right,
you.
guys.
I'll drive
I don't
you.
have anything else on.
I bet you
We're
would.
doing our
Anything else?
first.
Do you guys have anything else to
Sale.
wrap on?
No, but Peter, I do want to add up all the partnerships I have outside of dentistry, and I think I might be able to go toe to toe with you. So stay tuned
As
for
the
an equal
Republican
and
candidate
opposing
says.
humble flex.
That's fake news.
Right. Right. Well, as the top independent news candidate says, I wouldn't take that shot if I were
All right.
you. No, I'm kidding. Remember, got that. I didn't know what to say.
All right,
Anyway,
guys.
good talking to you guys.
See you.
See you guys.
Yeah.